So let's, shall we dive in to start with mocking up a WordPress website on your local computer, because I don't know how many of you currently have a website hosting plan and have access to like a cPanel backend. For those that don't know what cPanel is, we talked about it a little bit briefly in one of the first two sessions on the technology platforms. And cPanel is the default for most web host service providers. It's the backend tool that allows you to upload various content and manage databases and create email addresses and view your webmail and so on. And it's the default for most web hosts. So if you don't currently own myname.ca and have a web host with a cPanel backend, I'm going to show you how, and hopefully you all got the link from Victoria, to download MAMP, M-A-M-P, at mamp.info. Was the website address. If you didn't get it and you haven't downloaded it, you can watch the videos, but this is meant to be hands-on, so I'd love you to follow along if you can. So if you haven't downloaded it, it's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes to download and install. Maybe 10 minutes, not 15, 10 minutes to install. So you might want to start doing that right now if you haven't already installed it. And I'll put the website into chat here. And MAMP is available for both Windows and OS X. There are many, essentially what MAMP is, it's a stack of services that are packaged together that try to emulate what your local computer is. It's an operating system, basically, and the back-end information that's required to run various programming languages, like PHP or Perl, and to support basically hosting of websites. So when you get a web host and you purchase a service, there will be essentially all the programs that you download with MAMP is essentially what you're getting with a web host. So in order to emulate a web host on your local computer, we need to download this program. And there are many others. There is XAMPP. And I think it's available, if I remember, Apache Friends. I think it's .org, ApacheFriends.org, but just search it. It's an alternative, and there's another one that's called WAMP, which is for Windows. XAMPP is for Windows, OS X, Linux, and a whole bunch of other services. XAMPP is more complicated. It's more powerful, I find. It's a bit heavier in terms of what it can do than MAMP. I gave you MAMP because it's a little bit lighter weight and takes up less hard drive space. I actually use XAMPP on my local computer because I want the extra services that XAMPP provides. But MAMP is fine. And when you've downloaded it and set up to install, if you have, when you click to run it, there'll be a number of notifications. The first one will be, do you want to download, if you haven't downloaded it yet and installed it, the first one is, do you want to install MAMP and MAMP Pro? MAMP Pro is a paid service. You get a free trial for a month. So if you installed it, it doesn't matter. It's fine. It won't work after a month, but you don't need MAMP Pro for today. So if you haven't yet run the executable, when that comes up, just choose MAMP. There's another one that comes up for some Apple software. It's also optional. If you added it, installed it, that's also fine. And you can, if you don't know after today, if you don't want to keep it, you can uninstall it. You may get other questions like if you have a firewall on your computer, you have to approve access, MAMP has to have access past your firewall. But you don't want to have, I don't encourage you to allow access to MAMP past your firewall for a public server. You want to choose a private server only, or sorry, not a private server, private network, not your public network. So if you're on a laptop and you are at the airport or something, you don't want MAMP to have access to the public network. There's the possibility of someone gaining access to your computer. So you want to use it when you're only at home on your secure internet access only, not on a public network. You may get other notifications such as setting up a port, and you can usually just accept the defaults. Whichever it asks for, just accept the defaults and it should work. If it doesn't work, put a notification in chat, and I will try to demonstrate the steps to try to kind of address the problems. Okay. So I am going to show you quickly just some, because I actually have XAMPP. It just gave me, I tried to put MAMP on my computer, but I already have XAMPP installed, and you can't, MAMP won't allow you to have another one of these programs installed on your computer, and it was just causing me too much heartache. So I have XAMPP installed on my computer, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference. I will notify you when there are some differences. So I'm just going to put up on screen share the first thing that you're going to see once you have successfully installed the MAMP program. This is on Windows. It may look a little bit different on Mac. This is once you're running, you should see Apache server with a little green light beside Apache server, and you should see MySQL server with a green light. If you don't see that, put a notification in chat, and I will try to point you in the appropriate directions to address some of the common issues. You can, if you don't see a green light there, then it will say start servers right here. Just click on start servers, power them up. And it will take a minute, but just wait and you'll see a green light eventually. Okay. If you have both green lights, you can click on open start page. And that will take you to localhost/MAMP on Windows is the address here in to open up a web browser, and it's going to take you to the address localhost/MAMP. And this is just a website page with various links. So the one that we're going to learn a little about today is PHP info. And this is what it looks like, at least the top of the page under PHP info, this is what it looks like. We're also going to learn about under tools, the drop down, there is a program there called, oops, that's the wrong one, called PHP MyAdmin. And I didn't take a screenshot of that.
Just wanted to mention, there are two comments.
Sorry, I can't. Can you speak? I'm just turning up my volume. I couldn't hear you.
Sorry about it. I was a bit far from the mic too. I noticed there is a couple of comments that people having issues. There is no MySQL on a Mac.
MySQL, yeah.
And there is also someone installed it 2 days ago, and now it says that the trial expired. So I'm not sure if there is a way around it.
So if you already installed it a while back, I thought the trial for MAMP Pro was not like it was longer than just a couple days. But you should have access to just MAMP, which is free. It doesn't require anything, and it's permanently free forever. So it should be fine. If you can't get it up and running, there's going to be a video of all of this, because unfortunately I'm not going to be able to address all of your technical issues and still provide the training. So what you might need to do is uninstall it and try reinstalling it again. And don't select MAMP Pro, just select MAMP only in your install options, okay? If you have no MySQL, there are options under, I believe it's under MAMP, and then I have to go look on my other computer where I have MAMP, and I don't have screen share installed here for you because I'm on a different computer, but just let me go look 1 second. Under MAMP and then Preferences, and then Ports. So MAMP, then Preferences, then Ports. The default ports for MAMP are 80 for Apache, 80 for Nginx, Nginx, and 3306 for MySQL. So there are 2 links there: set MAMP ports to default and set web and MySQL ports to 80 and 3306. So try both of those. Try the MAMP ports to default, which are slightly different than 8080 3306. They are 888, 7888, and 8889. They're a little bit different numbers. Try both. And if those don't work, I can schedule a separate meeting with you, one-on-one, to try to get you up and running. There are also tons of web videos out there for problems with your port settings. But if you don't have MySQL, it is a port setting problem. Okay. All right, so assuming all of you, the rest of you, have MAMP up and running, what I want to talk about is, okay, first, what is all of this? And how does it all work? Okay, so I'm just going to screen share here XAMPP, and the control panel looks a little bit different. So I'm just going to start the services for Apache and MySQL, which is the equivalent of what we're seeing on the MAMP dashboard there. And wherever you installed MAMP, so there are, when you are installing, there's a default on Windows, it's C : // MAMP. And the reason for putting it in C, not in program files, is it's not a program. It's like a web server, an emulated web server. And if you put this kind of stack of code in program files, it's not going to work properly. So it needs to be installed somewhere out of the regular programs folder. So you can install it wherever you like in a different location. If you've got more than one drive, which I do on my computer here, I actually install it on a different drive that's separate from my C drive. MAMP you can only install in one location once. It won't allow you to have multiple versions of it. A program like XAMPP, you can have multiple instances of this server in different locations on your drive, which is why I like it. I like to have the possibility, if I need that, to have more than one version installed in different locations with different settings. But I thought it was going to be just too much for all of you to try to understand it right off the bat, so I recommended MAMP, which is a little bit simpler. When you go to PHP info, and look at all of this information here, there are the server that we're having here to support a WordPress website. You need 2 technologies. You need to be able to support PHP, which is a programming language. And Christine, I'm sorry to hear you're lost. Hopefully you can watch again and catch up over time. there are two technologies that we need to be able to support. And the first one is PHP. It's just a programming language like C++ or Java. It's just a different program language that WordPress is built on. The second technology that we need is MySQL. And MySQL is a database programming language. And there are many programming languages for databases. MySQL is used for WordPress and many other technologies because it's a free open source Creative Commons technology. So it can be used without any cost and is updated frequently. And there's a very strong developer community around it. Just like PHP, it's an open source free language. So it can be used for any purpose by anyone and is well supported. So if there's some problems with running your WordPress website in MAMP, there are some keys that we'll come to at the very end of this in PHP info. It just has information about the settings for your server, your MAMP server, for the PHP language. And there are some restrictions, for example, on the maximum file size that you can upload. It defaults, I think, to 8 megabytes. And if you want to upload a file into your website program or your database that is bigger than 8 megabytes, you're going to get by default an error notice saying you can't, your maximum file size limit is 8 megabytes. So there is a quick fix in some of the programming to change that. So I will show you at the end of this training where that is. And I'm actually, I'm working on a training series that I'll publish on YouTube probably by the end of this year that will have more detail step-by-step on all this stuff. So you can kind of reference it in the future. The other, so we'll come to that a little bit, but the first thing I want to show you and to understand, now you hopefully all have your MAMP server running, is where to go to work with it locally. And then we'll look at PHPMyAdmin, this other program under Tools, PHPMyAdmin, that will help you manage the database. But let's start with the installation files for MAMP. So you're going to find your MAMP folder wherever you put it. And 1 second. So because I have XAMPP installed on my computer, I don't have all of the folders here because I had to uninstall MAMP. So there are some, this is the MAMP installation on my local computer, but I had to uninstall it. I apologize. So not all of the folders are here, but the most important one for all of you is here, and that's the folder htdocs. This is the one you want to look for. And everyone find that and just maybe in chat say, yes, found it, or just, yes, got it. htdocs. If nobody's found it, then we're in trouble. But if at least a few of you found it, then we'll keep going. Program still won't run for Angela. I'm so sorry, Angela. We'll set up a one-on-one with you afterwards. You can screen share with me and we'll try to problem solve, okay? And you just have to watch the video after. So we've got 2 yeses, okay. And the rest are just probably you're just watching. So we want to find htdocs. And so this is where you're going to put your WordPress website information. So the first thing we're all going to do right now is open a browser. And you're going to want to go to just search WordPress download. And it's going to take you in Canada. It's going to take you to default if you're, unless you're Francophone, it'll take you to fr-ca, I believe. But for English, it's English en-ca at wordpress.org. And I want you to download this software. It's version 5.5.1 is the most recent version. So let's download that. Download the tar GZ. hopefully you will all have a archive unzipping program available on your local computer to be able to unzip it. So you're going to take that, so I've already downloaded it. You're going to take that application zip file and you're going to unzip it. 7-zip is a free program for Windows. If you can't figure out how to unarchive it, 7-zip is a nice free application. And it's available just for Windows and I think Linux. I don't think it's available for Mac, but that's the one I use for Windows machines. And we want to extract this, just extract all into this same folder. And it'll take a minute. And while that's happening, I'm going to do this in my XAMPP folder, which is it's the same htdocs folder, but just so I can show you as we go along. So XAMPP, it looks a little bit different. Here's all the folders, but there's still this same htdocs folder. So I'm just going to unzip it there. Okay, and once you have that in that folder extracted, it's going to take a few, probably five or so, 10 minutes. It might take 10 minutes. Depends on the speed of your computer. It's a fairly big, almost 3,000 files, so it'll take a few minutes. So once you have extracted it all, you can rename this folder whatever you like. WordPress or like my website, but just remember whatever you call this folder, you're going to have to type that each time or bookmark it when you go to visit it on your local browser. So, if you call it my website and like you're going to have to remember that hyperlink. So you want it to be something fairly simple. So like my website version 1. Something simple, okay? Not too complicated. And while we're all downloading and extracting those files, let's go quickly look at the PHP myadmin interface. So you're going to go, so let me close this here. So on MAMP here, you're going to go to Tools and then click on PHP myadmin. And it's going to look something like this. And it's going to be located at localhost PHP myadmin. So you can bookmark that if you like. Or every time you just remember your local host. This is what it looks like, the landing page here on XAMPP. It looks a little bit different from MAMP, but it's basically the same thing. We have the PHP info link here, and we have PHP myadmin. So the main things that we want to know about are databases and user accounts. So the first thing we want to do is add a user account for your databases. So you're going to click on user accounts and new add user account. And I recommend you keep the usernames fairly simple, but in production, so when you put this on the web, you want a very, very robust password, probably 32 to 64 characters long. If you want to be really, really secure, 128 characters. Okay, something really significant. The reason for that, in the past, I had a database that the password wasn't secure enough, and someone broke into it and injected their own content into the database and broke our website badly, and we had to start from scratch. And then there was all this content that they put up there that was, racist and so on, in many bad ways. So you want to have a very, very secure information here. So I often use for your username something that's a bit odd, but not too long, so you can remember it. And I encourage you to open up a basic text document. And so I'm going to open up in my computer here. Oops, I'm going to open up Notepad, just a basic text editor. So I can remember, just temporarily put down the password information off to the side. So the user I'm going to create is my website SQL. The host name is going to be localhost. And your password, we can use the generator. And to get a good password, generate it once. Copy that, put it over into your note document, generate again, copy that, put the two together, generate again, and there you have 12 times 3, whatever that is. Can't do the math today. Like 36 characters. So I'm going to put those in there as a nice, secure, very strong password. Okay, and I'm going to copy my username so I remember it. So there's a video of this, but no one's going to have access to this. So this is the information I've copied down here, my username and my password, because we're going to need this in a few minutes. Okay. The next thing we want to do is check all for global privileges. So this user is going to be able to have all access to do whatever we want with the database, whatever's needed. And then down here, you can click Go. Find the Go button and save that. There is this database for user account, but I always ignore that. Okay. And I'm not going to remember this. Then the next thing we're going to have to do is assign this user to a database. But we need to make the data. I actually should have made the database first. I always forget which I should do first. So we're going to have to come back, unfortunately, to this. So we're going to have to go to databases. And here, let's create a database name. And you want that to be fairly unpredictable. Also, just in case someone gets access to your username or your password, they may not know the database name. So you just want it to be something that's a little bit quirky. So I usually start with a special character, an underscore or a dash, or just something that's unusual, and then your name. So I'm going to call it my website V1. Good enough. And you're going to want to have a UTF-8 as the character encoding. So this will set up special characters and GIFs, the various like, what do we call those? They are smiley faces and so on, for using UTF-8. If you don't do that, then if you choose some other format, it won't support that. So just use the default and create your website. Database. When you go to structure here, you can select your database, your databases. Actually, I want to go back to just click on PHP MyAdmin again. That'll take you to your home page. Then you can get to databases and your list of databases here. if you want to get rid of your database, all you have to do is check mark it and click drop, and that'll delete the database. If there's information in it, then you lose the information. But there's not, this is an empty database. There's nothing in it right now. Okay. All right, so now we need to go back to user accounts and edit privileges for your new user. And we're going to go to database, and we're going to just click on and assign privileges for this user. And all the privileges we set up, when we created that user, they had privileges for everything. So we're just going to assign all privileges to this database by clicking go. And we can just confirm that they have all privileges by clicking on all again and go. All right. So that's all we need to do right now with our database, with MySQL. And if things work smoothly, that's all you need to do. You'll never need to go back to PHP admin. Your website, your WordPress installation will work with it on a daily basis and update it and so on. I will show you some things that might need to be done and how to do it at the end of this session. We have a question for firewall. Yeah, so I said this at the top, but just as a reminder, for firewall, you want Apache HTTP server to communicate on your private network, which is your local home computer, your home network only, not on public networks and not on the cloud. Well, if everything is at localhost, that's not the cloud. It's your local computer emulating the web for you. Localhost means it's on your local computer. It's not on the web anywhere. No one has access to it except you. Okay? Which is why this is why we can, I'm showing you this program so you can play with and learn how to use WordPress without it being public and accessible to anyone. It's only accessible to you. And then when we're ready, and I'll show you how, you can migrate it to your public website. Okay. So let's go to our mamp folder. And go to your htdocs folder and make sure that your WordPress has been fully extracted and that you have named your folder what you want to name it. So on my computer, I'm going to go to XAMPP in htdocs. And I'm going to rename this as my website -1. So once you've done that, we now get to install and run WordPress. If everything has worked properly, all you need to do is go to localhost / the name of this folder. So I'm going to go to localhost / my website -1. And that's not what I was expecting, so I've done something incorrect. Yes, okay, so glad I did that. So when you download WordPress and unextract it to a folder, it usually has WordPress installed in its own subfolder. So we need to take all of these files here and take them out of the WordPress folder and put them into the root folder of your htdocs folder that will be your website, emulated locally here. Emulated just means, what does that mean? Like pretend, like advanced previewing what it actually looks like. So I'm just going to select everything and I'm going to Control X or Command X to delete it. And I'm going to Control X or Command V to paste it into the root folder of my website -1. And I'm going to delete this WordPress folder. So what we got when I emulated my website here is, oh, there was no code there that it was expecting a website. So it just gave me a preview of the files. So now if I refresh here, we should get, yes, our first welcome from WordPress. And it wants to know your database connection information. Is everyone that is following along, are we all at this point? Can I have a yes in chat that you all successfully have seen this? For those that are following along step by step. Do we have a few yeses? Awesome. There's one. Do we have another one? Just watching? Okay, that's fine. What we're going to need to do, the next step, so we have one person following along, so at least it's a small group today, so that's okay. So let's click on Let's Go. And database name here is the name that you called it when you set it up. So for me, it's all this information. Oh, that's my user. That's the user. And this was the password. And I've already forgotten what I called my database. So it's underscore my website v1. Username is, so I'm just going to write this down. And that's the database DB name. Usually DB is short form in all the code for database. So database name, and then the user, I want that. And the password for your database. So this is a relatively long password, nice and secure. And it's the database host is localhost. Okay. Then you can just leave table prefix WP underscore, just leave it. What this does is you can host multiple websites, multiple installations of WordPress on the same database if you want. It's possible to do that. It's called a multi-site. And what multi-site just means is that you have, say you have 3 themes. You have like your normal website, and then you have a wiki, and your wiki is using a different theme. So you have different settings for it, and so you actually have a whole different version of WordPress installed. But you don't want to have 2 different databases, so you have to keep, so it's all kind of distributed, and you're having to manage 2 databases all the time. You can have 1 database, and so 1 installation of WordPress is WP underscore, and then you would change this, and I wouldn't encourage more than 2 digits. Just change this to anything, WP1 if you wanted, to 3 is okay, but it could be some other combination of 2 or 3 digits, and it gets appended to every table in the database to distinguish one database from the other. But for today, and so we keep WP underscore here, just in case that ever happens, you go to a multi-site in the future, you can do that. But for now, we're just creating 1 website, so you can just leave it. And you can run the installation. So site title is like my website, whatever you want to call it. And then you need a username. And if you're posting content, this is the username that, unless you create new users, which you can, of course, the name will, if you decide to post content with this user ID, it will become public. So I usually use a name that is representative of the website. So for ArtsPond, the username is, there's a username called ArtsPond. But you want to have, again, a very secure password, because someone can guess that the username is the name of your website. But if you have a simple password, they could use a key generator and break into your website relatively easily. So you want to make sure that you can use an unexpected name. Admin is common for some people, but that's what lots of people trying to break websites expect it will be. So I'm going to use my website because that's the name of my website. And I'm going to generate a couple different passwords. And actually, to this one, I'm just going to type to it. Okay, so there's my password. And I'm putting it over in my, so I have, and then I have WP. And so all of this is MySQL, your database. And this is your WP CRM. So your user is, your site title doesn't matter so much. So user is my website. And password, okay? Because you want to reference that later. Strong, and you need to put in an email address. So I don't have any my website, so I'm just going to put hello@artsbond. And it has to be a working email address because they're going to WordPress is going to send you notifications there. If you're putting this as a public website, you can discourage search engines from indexing your website. So it can be like a not as discoverable, and you can change that at any time. But you're it doesn't really work that often. You have to kind of the spiders that are crawling the web for various for Google and Yahoo and so on have to honor this request, and they don't all do that. But it's on a local host. It's not a public website, so it doesn't really matter for testing purposes. And when you go public, you're going to want people to index your website. So I usually do not check that. And install. This is not run. I've never run across this before, so I am going to click on repaired and see if that works. It's funny how, oh, okay, I literally tried 3 times last night, and everything was working just fine. I think what it has to do with is probably either the username or one of the passwords. It doesn't. There's some special characters in there that it doesn't like. Whew. Oh dear. What I'm going to do is, what can we do? We will. Is for people that are following along. I know what we're going to do, but for people who follow along, did it work for you? Did you get a successful installation? And what I'm going to do, I'll show you, just because this might have come up for you in the future. While you're, letting me know if you got one person's got a success. Awesome, great. I would like to just, because obviously I have a problem, I want to show you where this WP config file is, and where you can go for some support if you have something like this come up. You're going to go, and congratulations to those that have a success page. I'm so delighted that has happened for you. It's funny how when you actually do this live, after like never having an error, you get an error. So where you want to go is to htdocs again, and your website folder. And there is this file here called, it's PHP, it's PHP script, it's PHP language file, wp-config. And we want to edit this with a basic text editor. So on Windows, Notepad is a good one. Text edit is a good one on Mac. Don't open it in Word or like a heavier word processing program. It's gonna break it. You want just basic, not even RTF, just basic, not rich text format editing, just basic text. This is actually coding here. That's PHP. And so here we can see right here, there's some, wherever you see stars and slashes, these are comments. So it's not actual code, it's comments from the coder for the user to understand how the code is organized. It's very common. So almost everything here is code, it has a comment, and then you'll see all this code here. So if you ever, so all the database information here, I put it down in a Word document, but if you lose it, go to WP config, and here is your information. DB name is the name of your database, DB user is database user, database password, database host is localhost, the character set is UTF-8. And you don't need to worry about DB collate, don't worry about that one. And it's suggesting in the error notice that we have to allow, add this code to the file. So I'm just going to put it right at the top so I know, and I'm gonna put, you can just copy and paste it. Okay, and then I'm gonna save it. As a repair, then I need to turn my servers on. They're on currently. I need to turn them off and turn them back on for it to reread this. So the server is going to reread the WP config file with this new code added. So I don't have mamp, I have XAMPP. So I'm just going to stop my services, and I'm going to start them again. And I'm going to refresh this. And so the code is working, so now I can repair the database. Everything's okay. Remove, and I'll need to remove that line. But I'm still having a problem here with the installation. So I'm going to look at the code here for the destination. And so we know that if we go to WP or my website here, I'm going to get to the root admin for my website. So if it's a public installation and it's working, this should take us directly to the website. And it did. So that little repair worked. And I have no idea why there was a problem. I've never run across that in like 10 years or 12 years. I've never run across needing to do that. But now you understand a little bit about the WP config file. I was going to show it to you anyway. But sometimes there's a fix that you can add, and I'll remember to remove it. So now we have the installation of WordPress on our website. To get to the back end, so this is probably what the person that saw a success page, this is where you've probably been sitting. If you've never used WordPress before, we need to get into the back end, the administration side of things, to be able to add content. And I'm just going to go for, so you know, we're going to go for 5 or 10 more minutes, and then we'll take a break, okay? Because it's been almost an hour and a half. So the default to log in is actually WP-login. Okay, that's the default to get to the login page. But if you're not logged in and you put WP admin, so this, I never bother with WP login. I always just use WP-admin. That will take you to your login page. And if you are already logged in, it will take you into the interface. Okay, so you don't need to know necessarily WP login, just the WP-admin. There are ways to change that, that login address. I'm not sure I'm going to have time to show you, but there are free plugins that you can add to your WordPress installation to customize that. So on ArtsPond's website, we've changed it from WP admin because it's very well known if you have WP admin or WP login as a working address that it's a WordPress website. So we don't necessarily want the whole world to know. So we got a free plugin to change it to login, and we have a themed login page, as opposed to the default here that has WordPress branding. Okay, so it is possible to get a free plugin to change this and it'll fit in with your website. But I have to put in my information here. So my user is my website and the password and log in. And you can remember me if you like. That's going to be added to your local web cache of passwords. I do not encourage you to use your local Google or Chrome or Firefox. I do not encourage you to add passwords to your local web browser. Encourage you to use like a password manager like LastPass. We mentioned that in the first day of training, I believe. LastPass is a password manager, so it's asking me, do I want to add it to LastPass? I'm not going to do that. So we're into the back end now. And I'd like to spend 15 to 20 minutes after the break just talking about the major functions of WordPress and how to add content and add plugins. But how many of you have never used, has anyone in the call today never used WordPress before? Some of you may have had access to WordPress and you understand some of the backend and how it's organized. Perhaps you've not ever done this in a local server environment, but do some of you at least have some understanding of WordPress, or should I start from scratch? How much of an introduction around WordPress would you like is basically my question. Anyone give me a sense for people on the call, how you have some understanding, you're currently using WordPress? Any others have some understanding or no understanding? You use WordPress.com, okay, good. Use it a bit now using Squarespace. Okay, so this backend, if you use WordPress.com, you may notice that the interface looks pretty much the same. The only difference between WordPress.com is that they're hosting it for you and you don't have to do all these steps that we just did locally and on a web host. But we can, so it looks like overall, I think we'll all benefit from just starting from scratch with WordPress, and I'll orient you to creating content, creating pages, creating posts, and adding plugins to extend functionality. Okay, so we'll do. Let's do a few minutes of that right now, and then I thought we'd do it after the break, but let's do a few minutes of it now. And for those that want to, keep going, they can play around a little bit while we're on break. So there are two main kinds of content for WordPress. The first one is called posts. And it's meant to be time sensitive. It's your blog. It's short content that is time sensitive and will not necessarily be available. You maybe only publish it out for a few weeks or a few months, or it's there permanently, but it goes into an archive with all your past posts, and only the most recent ones are accessible. So on ArtsPond's website, there is ArtsPond blog. And so the most recent ones are available here, and there's a navigation button down below for the subsequent pages. And there's also all of these added by WordPress. And I don't like how many months there are, because it just extends the page unnecessarily. But there are plugins to allow you to customize, free plugins to allow you to customize how this list looks. But this is the archive going back to 2018. And that's all managed by WordPress. I don't have anything to do with that. So that's posts, and you can create new post here, or just click on posts and add new. There is two metadata issues or opportunities, not issues, opportunities for you around posts. There's categories and tags. So how they look when you are looking at actual post itself, and you can change whether categories and tags are viewable on your blog in each article or not. So this is a category here called news, and so that's usually it's a top level, and it usually comes with the title. Then your tags are descriptors about your specific article. And your categories show up it defaults on a right menu, and your tags show up underneath it. And you can click on each of these, and so we can filter and see all of the articles that, all of the blog posts that have tags of digital literacy. Likewise, we can go to news here, and there's 112 of them. So usually there are fewer categories. They're top level. Like you might have events as one, you might have news as another, or education, or job opportunities, really high level that you are doing a lot of, that you want to make people find easily or help people find easily. And then tags are much more open-ended. The more tags you have, the longer your navigation page, your home page is going to be, because it's going to try to fit, it's going to display all the tags basically. You again can find a free plugin to customize which tags show and don't show. So there is a way to do that, but by default, it's going to display all of your tags. So if you have 200 tags, you're going to have a lot of navigation. You'll see some WordPress websites where they have your blog and there's only like four articles or 4 posts. And then there's like 200 and they keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and there's tags, and then there's archives, and finally you get to the footer. So you want to be careful about how many tags and categories you have, because that front page navigation may be quite too tall, basically. So that's kind of your timely content, and it's meant to disappear into the archives eventually. The other major kind of content that comes with the default is static content. Actually, there's 3 kinds of content, sorry. There's also your media. So you have your static pages. And those are meant, and I'm saying static, those are meant to be available all the time. So it's your vision, mandate, history, contact pages. If you have a programming page that or an event that happens all the time and you want to describe it, you could have a page that's about it. And usually they're on your top, all these pages are accessible as opposed to posts. All your pages are accessible in your top level menu. So source, story, actions, all of these things are pages, okay? And then you have media, and so that's all of your images and PDFs, videos or audio files. If you are hosting those on your website, that's what that is. And then you can also create different kinds of users. So we'll look at some of those after the break. But it's quite easy to create a new post, either there or posts, add new. And by default, this is relatively new. Using the block editor, you can, if you buy a theme or install some of the free versions of some of the content editor suites that are out there, such as WP Bakery, you can not just use the block editor for WordPress, you can use some of those features. But really, out of the gate now, the block editor is pretty much like a drag and drop interface, and it's only about 1.5 years old now, as a part of the basic core programming for WordPress. So you may be able to do all you ever want to with the basic block editor. So you want to add a title, so hello there. And then you can start typing here, or you can use the block editor, click on a button here, and choose different kinds of content. So you can add an image, a heading, a quotation, a gallery, a list, or you can browse all here. And this is all new, like it wasn't here 2 years ago. This is all new. There's various widgets and embedding, embedding a word, a YouTube video or a Vimeo video, all kinds of things that you can embed. Tables, paragraphs, or just start, if you're just typing a basic blog, I am happy to announce my new website. And don't worry about, right now, don't worry about the size of the fonts and so on. This is just the default for the block editor. You can change how it displays on your website with themes and various other kinds of customizations. So typography, you can choose the default or customize it. But basically, I'm just going to hit publish here. To make it go live to your website. But there's more features here under document. So you can, in terms of visibility, you can change it from public to private. So only site, so only yourself that have login permissions or people that have the direct link to it with password protected can view your content. Permalink. So when you create a content, you have a title for the page or the post, and the permalink is going to be whatever that title of that page you want it to be. And you can, so it defaults for page number 5 here. So question mark just means it's actually the PHP. It's adding some code to the website destination. And you'll see this on Facebook all the time. So when someone, Facebook is tracking when you share a link, it adds question mark FB, I think it is, and then a whole bunch of numbers. If you ever see question mark and anything after that on a link, you can delete all of that and get rid of the tracking information and just use the basic link. But as soon as I publish it, it's going to default with this, hello there, as the default link for the page. So now we'll see it's not a P number 5. It's localhost my website. It's added year, month, and day, and then for the date of the post, and then hello there. You can change this a year, month, and day in the settings, and we'll look at that. But it's basically taken hello there, and it's added a dash instead of a space in the title. So I can edit this if I want. By changing the slug, URL slug. So I could change that to be hey there instead of hello there, and now the hyperlink for the permalink has changed. If I change this to hi there and update, the permalink does not change. So if you want the permalink to match your new title, you have to go in and change the slug. Okay, and update. Then you've got your categories and the default installation for categories. There's only one category and it's uncategorized. There's no tags, but you can just add a comment separated list. So we can have greetings or like staff stories or something like that. And it'll add. Featured image is really important. That's on our blog. That's this image. Is your featured image. We use 900 by 630 pixels. That's what I recommend personally in my experience. That's the most adaptable for most themes and works good on social share. Okay, in most cases, or works good, works well. Works well is better language. Okay, so I don't have an image, so I'm just gonna go in and rent that for this specific one, but I'm gonna go in and randomly choose something. 1 second. And this one is not 900 by 630. I don't believe. Yeah, it's too big. So we can edit it. Can scale it 900, so it's not 630, but so we can just scale it. I would like it to be 900 by 630, but whatever size you decide upon, if you want a consistent feel, you need every image in the future to be the same dimensions. But if you can have, so that's our approach. I wanted it to be consistent, but other people, you might have all kinds of different sizes, and that's fine too. It's up to you. So I'm just going to use that image instead. So I'm going to go back and select it and set featured image. Then, so that'll work for our website, but after the break, we need to install the first plugin we're going to install to extend WordPress is an SEO manager, a site engine or search engine optimization plugin to offer some features so that when we share this on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and so on, that our image may not be ideal, and 900 by 506 is definitely not ideal for Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn. So we want to install a free plugin to be able to add additional data and additional image data to work well when we social share. Okay, so we want to learn how to extend WordPress, because as great as WordPress is for free, it doesn't do everything that we need. And so there's a whole developer community, and there's a whole area of functions that WordPress supports to allow us to extend what it can do. So as long as we've saved this, if you click on your WordPress here, you'll be able to go back to the admin side of things. You can always click on My Website, and I usually right-click and open a new tab to see what's happening locally on your website. So there's the post. And we have a terrible theme, so it doesn't look that great, but that's okay. More about that later. So we need to go to plugins and add new plugins. And there's tens of thousands of plugins. Professional, you have to pay for them. Sometimes it's a one-time fee, sometimes it's an annual fee, but there are thousands of free plugins. And I recommend you look through the popular and recommended and explore the ones that might meet your needs. And in session 2, I gave you a bunch of recommendations. If you go back and look at the PowerPoint, there are a bunch of recommended plugins that are all free for WordPress. And one of them is called Yoast SEO. And it's right there on the, actually it was right there on the recommended. Yoast SEO. So let's install that right now. And there's 5 million active installations, so it's quite popular. And what you want when you're installing a plugin, there are 2 things to look for: that it's been updated recently in the last 3 months-ish. Once you get more than 3 months old, with the pace of technology changing, you'll get into some potential security issues. But there are still some good plugins that are 6 months, that haven't been updated in 6 months. So this one 3 days ago, and there's recommendations about from WordPress itself whether it's compatible with your current version. So we want to make sure that's good. And you can look at the ratings, and if there's like millions of active installations, then it's a good one to go. Okay. So it has to install, and then once it's installed, you have to activate it. So it's a 2-step process. So install, and now we can activate. If you installed something and then you navigated away and you forgot to activate, you can go to installed plugins. And there's 2 that come with it. Hello Dolly is just a plugin to make sure it's working. I always delete it. Don't need it. Anti-spam Akismet is something that's useful. There's a free version, but it's not that great. So I usually try to find other ones, but I usually just leave it for now. So we can activate Yoast here if you forget. And you can also unactivate and uninstall by deleting here, okay? So we're gonna activate Yoast. And you can go and just learn how to use Yoast, but I'll just feature it really quickly on our posts. So we're going to go to all posts once it's successfully been activated here. Yoast is free. Anything I share with you now is free. I installed it. You saw it didn't, you noticed it didn't, you can go premium if you want, but the free is very good. So you can get premium if you want, but no, the free is awesome. Anything I tell you today is all free. So we're going to go to posts, all posts, but we can also go to the post itself, click on it here. There's always more than one way to do things, and we can edit this post. Or we can go to here and edit or quick edit. Quick edit will allow you to change the date, the categories and tags, and the name, the title of the post, but that's pretty much it. So we'll click on edit here. And basically when you add a plugin, it's going to add other fields around below, usually below or to the side of the WordPress core information here. So Yoast gets added not in the sidebar down here or over here, but in the bottom. So Yoast, so you can add your keywords for metadata. You get a rating here about readable and says, yeah, there's not enough content. It's a terrible post. Absolutely. There's schema here where you can help search engines understand the kind of content that this page or this post is about. But the most important one here for sharing on Facebook and Twitter are these two plugins here for giving social media for Facebook. You can change the Facebook image, the title, and the description, and there's same for Twitter. Okay. And then, so anytime, as soon as you populate that information and go and share it on Facebook or on Twitter, the ideal image size is not 900 wide, it's 1200 pixels wide and 630 pixels tall for those two platforms. So 900 for us, for our website, is a bit more compact. But the ideal 900 will work. It will be shareable, but it's not going to be ideal in every situation. So we want to have at least an image size of 1200 by 630. So creating that version, and we talked about in the previous session about using the artboards in Illustrator to create those different sizes for you automatically. The Facebook title and description is also shorter than what was usually permissible on your website. So you'll want to play with how much text is going to view and not view. Twitter allows more, I find, than Facebook. So there is also under SEO here, you can see a preview. This is what it's going to look like at Google when this website shows up as a search result. So you can click and see on it for mobile and on desktop. You can change the slug, and you want to add a metadata description. And it will tell you when you, so I'm going to write junk text here. So orange, it's not long enough yet. It's not enough information for Google. Oh, and as soon as it turns green, that is a good amount of information. And you keep typing, and if it turns orange again, it's too long. So that's about the ideal amount of information. And you see the preview there, hi there, my website, and the short description. There is also a short description called excerpt for your website. It can be as long as you want. Usually I find on ours, it's a bit shorter than Google. For the ideal, for mobile devices and for desktop devices and for the circulator here on our home page, I want, like this one's too long. I need to shorten it up a little bit. November should be NOV instead of the full month. And then it'll all be, I want it to be no more than 4 lines, ideally 3 lines. So I don't have this kind of different, I want them all to be the same length basically. So you can vary out whatever is useful for your situation, but Google wants that specific number of characters. This information, if you don't replace it, gets populated out as your Facebook description and your Twitter description, and it is too long. The Twitter description is 1.5-ish lines, and Facebook is 1 line. So if you're going to really do it well, you're going to have to write different versions of your content each time. And if you don't care, then just put the one version or leave it blank. If you leave it blank, whatever is in the other page in your excerpt will come up, or it'll pull directly from the post, the first words that are viewable on the post itself. But that isn't always going to work for you on a social share. Okay. There are so many plugins, but we have a question about, we have a comment. I have WordPress site. Is it WordPress.com that you have? And this message was sent to me privately, so not to everyone. I have a WordPress site, but won't install Yoast SEO without a business account. Yeah, so Yoast SEO, I don't think, I did not use WordPress.com in probably 10 years, so I am not sure what the limitations are, but in terms of what you can install. So I think WordPress.com, probably just won't allow you to use that plugin. Because it's too much customization, and so it's not going to be an option for you on WordPress.com. Okay, but I have had another question about. Okay, now we have content, and I'll try to share. If we have some time, a little bit more about some of the backend creating menus, and there's just so many things to teach you about. But I do want to make sure we have time to. Okay, we have our website. How do I create a backup? How do I get it? How do I get it from our local server here on our local computer to our public website, our CPAMO web host? So there is a free plugin. There's two. There's one called Backup. Actually, I forget its full name, but it's a backup one. It's a backup that'll easily create backups for your website, and you can schedule them so that you don't lose your content. It backs up your database. It backs up the WordPress content. And then there's another one called Duplicator, which is really nice and helps you migrate it from one location to another. And you don't need to worry about all the settings. You just say you use the Duplicator plugin to create a backup of where it is currently, and then you move it to where it is going to go to, and all the links will change to the new location. Because right now, this is located at localhost my website, but it's going to be at like mywebsite.com, some other address, not just localhost, when you move it to your public location. So every link needs to be changed, and you're not going to do that manually by yourself. You're going to use a free plugin. So let's look at that free plugin. Along location here. The free plugin to backup and migrate is called Duplicator. So we're going to go to plugins. And there's a million active installations. I only recommend you install it, activate it when you need to move it. And then when you're not using the plugin, you can either uninstall it or just unactivate it. The more plugins you add, it slows your website down. The public information and the public access will slow things down. So you don't want to have plugins activated that you're not needing in the present moment. So there is a kind of a golden section moment where you're adding lots of functionality, but it's actually slowing your website down too much when you're adding plugins. You want to be careful. If you have more than 60 plugins, it's too many. Unless you have a very fast, probably like a dedicated server. But on a shared host, basic website plan, probably 20 plugins is probably the good limit without seeing any sacrifices. 20 active plugins is probably your good limit to see without seeing any slowdowns on your website. So we're going to just install it. I don't think actually I have time to go through all of the steps, but it's really easy. And there's lots of training videos out there, but let me see if I can just kind of show you the interface and describe the key steps, and then you can go and do it, okay? And try to learn on your own. Just follow the help, and there's help videos and on YouTube. So we'll activate it. So we're going to go to, and so it adds down here on the menu item, duplicator. So what you do is create a new package. And there's a limit for the free plugin. It will only back up, I think, 500 megabytes for your WordPress. That's the files that are in htdocs currently. It'll only back up 500 megabytes. If it's more than that, you're going to have to manually, and this is what I recommend you do anyway, manually copy the WordPress files. So that's what we're going to do. Create a new package. Storage just is going to be on my local computer here. I'm not going to put it, I'm not going to connect some other service. The archive, I'm going to archive the database only to make this simple. And the installer, I don't want, I can just leave all the defaults, okay? And next. So we then want to build. I got a notice about the database, and that's fine. It's just it's notifying me. If I looked at the details, it just will say notifying you're only backing up the database. Just be forewarned. And we need both of these files, the installer and the archive. So I'm going to put that on my local computer here. Okay, and then what we'll need to do is make a zip file. The third thing we need to do is make a zip file of all of your htdocs folder. So that's all of this. 7-zip and add to archive. And that won't take too long. And then you'll need to go to your web host. So let me, I'm logging into my cPanel. Oops. On my web host, I'm just not going to screen share that information with you. And you want to go to the file manager for your cPanel host. And then instead of htdocs, the local host version of this server is the htdocs folder is called public HTML. And that's pretty much standard for everyone. Public HTML. And then I'm going to create a new folder. So I have a bunch of folders for all of our websites. So I'm just going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it my test website. If this was your only website, just put it in the root folder. So you'll notice down here, there's a lot of code here. This is the code for ArtsPond's website. It's in the root domain of public HTML, and then I'm hosting a bunch of other websites, and so they're under subdomains in different folders here. But I'm going to put the my test archive that I just downloaded into there. Where did I put it? 1 second. Oh, I don't do it that way. Sorry, I have to use the interface. I always forget. Upload. I'm going to go back. And using the interface here, I'm going to extract. Refresh or reload here. So this is the backup from, these are the files, I think. Oh, I'm not actually sure I uploaded the right file. Hang on one second. Yeah, I uploaded the wrong file. So the process, I'm running out of time. So the process really is to upload the installer and the files from Duplicator, which is these files here. Then I also have to upload the zip file of your htdocs, that whole folder, and put it there. Then the final step is to go to that location and just / and read the Duplicator information, but go to installer.php and run it, and it will move it will move your data. It'll establish your database. The new database for your website, and your website is migrated to the new location, and all the links will change to the local context. So you can read more up on it, but it's an awesome free little plugin for migration. Okay. Sorry, I don't have time to go through those next steps, but we're just, can't do, there's not enough time. Too much to do, too complicated. But hopefully that's a little bit helpful, okay? What else do we want to do around? I want to show you the trickiest part for WordPress, and in the early days when I was trying to figure it out, day one, and this is what made me want to quit and not use WordPress and not use Drupal, is figuring out how to create a menu and customize some things. So let's go down to settings. Okay, so the first thing to look at is, actually it's not settings, I apologize. It is these settings. These are the settings for Duplicator. I'm not interested in that. It's the settings for WordPress. So the general ones allow you to change the site title, but you can have you can customize whether the site title displays or not, and whether the tagline displays or not. If you're using Duplicator, do not change this. When you're migrating from one site to another, just leave it, and Duplicator will deal with this for you. So there is a public URL of the website that allows other people to access it, but then there is the actual folder on your local server where your WordPress files are. And sometimes those two are not the same. And when you are migrating, often those two things are very different. So you can change this manually if you like, but it may break and you may not be able to access your backend if you change this manually incorrectly. And then you won't be able to access WP admin without going into WP config and some of the other files and changing things. And there's lots of support around how to do that if you ever muck things up. But I wouldn't recommend changing this unless you know what you're doing. You can change your email, and you can change whether people can register and what to add new users and what permissions they have access to. Subscriber is the default. I wouldn't make them an administrator, which means they have global permissions to make every change on your website. Editor allows them to edit all content, but not change permissions of users. Author is just making content, posting new content, but not editing previous content primarily. And contributor is fairly similar. And then subscriber just allows them to read posts and and read specific content just for subscribers. Okay. And then there's even an SEO editor for someone who wants to edit Yoast SEO settings. Okay. But the most important ones to look at are writing, where you can set the default post category for new posts, and you can set and create those categories by going to posts and categories. You can set the default post format from a chat or a link or an image or a video or an audio to just standard. And you can add new content by email. So you can post using a secret password and a secret email address. You can post by email and just email it to your WordPress site. So you don't have to log in using these settings. Won't worry about update services right now. Reading allows you to set what your homepage is. So when you go to mywebsite.com, is there a specific page that you want them to land on every time? And which is your blog? Where does the listing of the most recent articles go to? So you need to, for this to work, like if you want to go to like artspawn.com/blog, you need to create a blank page and just call it blog and don't put anything on it. So we're going to add a new page. And we're going to call it blog, and that's it. Then we're going to go back to settings here and reading. And if we want to, our homepage is going to go to blog. And then your homepage might be home. That's very common. So artspawn.com/home is your homepage. So you need to create a page called home or whatever it is. And you can choose how many pages show in your syndication for RSS feeds and how many show on your website, and whether you want the full text or the summary to show in those feeds. Discussion I'll skip for now, but I do want to go down to tools next. No, where is it? Appearance is next. And widgets and menus. And the last thing we're going to talk about is themes. So widgets. On most WordPress websites, you will have a sidebar like off to the right. You might have a sidebar on the left as well. And you'll have a footer. And on the default here, we have a footer down here. And on the home page, we don't have any sidebars. But if we go to now my website blog, there should be a sidebar. Yeah, here's your sidebar. Okay. Those are dealt with widgets. So here is the only one you can customize with widgets with the default theme is footer 1 and footer 2. So that on the home page looks like this is footer 1, I bet, and this is footer 2. So you can customize the display of what shows there by choosing available widgets here and just dragging them over and then editing whatever you want in that content, okay? So you can add menus, whatever you like. And so that's widgets, and whatever shows up here is based on the theme that you have. There are some plugins that allow you to create custom widgets, but there's no time for that today. So we're next going to look at menus. And I'm not going to save those changes. So you can have as many menus as you like and put them in different locations on a sidebar, in your footer, or at the top. And so there, right now, it defaults as having just blog and sample page. So we want to create our own menu, and let's call it main, like main-en for English, main English. And right now, the only page that we've created is blog. So let's just add that to the menu. And we've only created one post, which is high there. So let's add that to the menu, just as an example. And then you can drag them up and down, and you can embed them. So hi there is now going to be under one menu item called blog. Let's add, just so we can have more on our menu here, let's add hello there also. And do we have any other pages? Let's add sample page. Just so we can see. And we can also add our custom links. Say you want to have a very common feature is you want to have a link here. I don't have any on our page, but you might want to have a link that takes you somewhere. But when you hyperlink on it, it doesn't have any, doesn't go anywhere. You want to have a drop-down link with it. Like say home here, it doesn't go anywhere. Home is artspond.com. But if I wanted to have some sub-menu items under it that did go somewhere, this is how we do it. We create a page here with a hashtag as a hyperlink, which is a non-link. You have to have something in, when you create a menu item, there has to be a hyperlink of some kind. And so a hashtag is just temporary. And we'll call it, I don't know, we'll call it about. I'm going to add it to the menu. And now I can, so let's save this menu. And let's refresh. We have to now menu locations, manage locations. We have to, the desktop horizontal menu at the top is going to be our main English menu. Now when I go in and refresh, instead of the default that came with the website, I now have blog, hello, and about. And notice that about is acting like a hyperlink, but when I click on it, it doesn't go anywhere. That's the first thing that we want to have happen in this example. But now what we want is, to understand this, is we want about, and then we don't want about to go anywhere, but we want all of these to be under it. Oops, now when I refresh, I have about and I have those. About doesn't take me anywhere. It opens up these, which do take me somewhere. That's a very common need, and it's a quirk where you have to create a link with a hashtag, get rid of the hashtag so it doesn't display, and then put your actual links underneath it, okay? That's a very common need. So that's a quick and dirty on menus. Themes is the last one. So WordPress comes installed every year. WordPress updates. There's often updates, more than one update every year. But annually, WordPress with its updates launches a new theme. And so there's 2019, 2020, and 2017. I don't know where 2018 went, but there's 3 themes available here. And so when you first install WordPress, 2020 is going to be the active theme. But we can change, we can customize the theme setup here. Change the site identity, the colors, various theme options. We can change the menus. And if you buy a professional theme, there's so many more settings that we can look at. So if we go into Artspond's website, for example, our theme is called Engage. Sorry, I wasn't already logged in. our theme is called Engage, and it has its own dashboard with its own theme options that are quite exhaustive. Allows us to change the header, the logo, page titles, footers, blog styling, portfolio. It has a portfolio function. We've talked about creating pages, but this is a whole module that's just about creating a portfolio with navigation and display and whole metadata settings around a portfolio. So it's like for $60, it's relatively cheap to find a theme that supports e-commerce or supports portfolio design. So Engage is one that we've bought that meets our needs, and typography and all kinds of settings to allow us to change the look of how the pages are displayed. So all you need to do is go and find that theme, buy it, or there's lots of free ones out there as well, and just add it and install it, and away you go. And once it's activated, you can have more than one theme active, and you can have that theme tied to different pages on your website. That is possible to do. If you want to have your contact page use a different theme, that is possible. I don't have time to go into how to do that, but there's lots of videos online on how to have more than one theme for different pages, okay? So that's my time that I planned for WordPress. Are there any urgent questions about what you've learned so far that you want to have addressed before I go on to the next topic? And I hope that was helpful. Any urgent questions from the group in chat? No? Okay. How many would like to learn about OBS Studio and live streaming? That's one topic I'd like to talk about. I would like to talk about Office 365 as well. I think I have time for both, but if you're not interested, if you've all used OBS Studio, then I won't. And we can spend more time on some other things. But how many of you are interested in live streaming to Facebook and Instagram Live and YouTube or Twitch and using video? So yeah, if you don't know what OBS Studio is, then there's two of you, so let's do it. What is OBS Studio? OBS Studio is the awesomest program that's free that allows you to record video, so desktop, so you can just record. So I'm actually running OBS Studio on my local computer now to take a screenshot, so not a Zoom recording, but just a screenshot of what I'm sharing. So I have a recording of the presentation, but not of all of you. And I'm using OBS Studio to do that, to create a screen recording. And you can create HD versions of it or lower quality. So you can change the screen quality, you can change the audio quality, and you can make recordings, audio and or video or both. But you can also simultaneously make a recording and broadcast live simultaneously to multiple live stream platforms like Facebook Live, like Instagram Live, like YouTube or Twitch. And you can control various devices. So you can have multiple inputs for audio and video, and you can create scenes or transition effects between the various cameras that you have and the various audio devices that you have. So if you're in the theater and you want to live stream out 3 cameras, a front view and 2 back views, left and right, then you can use OBS Studio to set up those 3 cameras and customize the view. So you could have all 3 camera views on one screen, or you could have 2 on one screen and then all 3 separately. And then you can create transitions just like you would in a TV show. Just click a button and transition from one view to another, and live stream that out to YouTube and so on. So let's look at that, OBS Studio. There is another version of it, and now I'm blanking on it. What's it called? I discussed it in session 2. I might have to go look it up. So apologies. There is another version. It'll come to me. I'm just tired and can't remember absolutely everything in my brain. There is another version that is that's been created because OBS Studio is open source software. So another developer has, and I'll come up with it before we're done, has developed another version of OBS that's it's a heavier program. It takes up more space on your drive, but the interface is cleaner, it's prettier, it's a little bit more powerful in terms of what it does, and it's just more attractive to use. But OBS Studio itself is lighter weight and still almost just as powerful. And so the vast majority of people use OBS Studio, I think, still, because it takes up less space and it does the basic functions that you need. But this other version is also, there's a free version and a premium version. It was developed primarily to provide some extra support for gamers and support around live streaming to Twitch in particular. I will just bear with me until my brain remembers what it's called. So let's look at OBS Studio. So you can go and find it and download it for free just by searching OBS Studio online. And OBS stands for Open Broadcast Software. And it's available for Windows, Mac, and Linux. Okay, and so this is what, and now we're going to get this multiple view because I'm sharing screen. This is the interface. So you're seeing me, I'm making a recording currently. And so we're getting all this extra effects, the endless effects, because it's one window after another, because I'm sharing my screen. But this is the interface. So over here, you choose your various scenes. And you can click on one or the other. And I haven't set up main, so there isn't anything that's going to display there. But once you have more than one scene set up, you can actually turn on a transition button right here, scene transitions, and just fade between them. And you can set up custom transitions using the gear icon here for various effects or timings for those transitions. But right now I've just got the basic scene for this program here, which has an audio input capture and a display capture. So the audio input, you just click on plus to add a new one. And I'm not going to obviously remove this one because then you won't be able to hear me anymore. But I can edit this. And it's just my local device, my Yeti microphone. Then display capture is set up as my third display. I have 3 displays on this computer currently. And so I've chosen display number 3. And I selected the defaults for all of that. To select a new, you can, so there's all kinds of types. So audio input and audio outputs, browsers, color sources, display and game captures, images and slideshows, and various scenes and texts. You can even set up a PowerPoint, one that's specific to PowerPoint here, in terms of media source. And then there's others that in the long term are depreciated in terms of not providing long-term support for it. But so if you want a screen capture, just video capture device here, add a new one. And it pops up a dialog box, and you can choose whatever the settings are and configure them. Okay. There are so many settings. I don't have time today to go through all of them, but in your settings here, you can set up, and some of these I'm not going to, like stream, I'm not going to show you because it will share my stream key. For access to Facebook and YouTube Live, which I do not want anyone to see. But in terms of streaming, you can have all the setups. Do you want to display at 1280, at 1920, at 720p? All the settings and the stream connection keys to access your Facebook Live or your YouTube Live or Instagram Live and Twitter and so on. Then you can set out various output settings for the streaming and for recording and for audio. You have all your audio settings and your video settings. You can set up various hotkeys, and there's lots of advanced stuff you can do in terms of rendering and which video kind of compression settings are you using? Are you using H.264 or some other kind of video standard for the recording and the streaming? Okay. And that's really the basics of it. And so you can go to you can record and stream simultaneously. And to stream simultaneously, you need to know what the stream keys are, and you get those from the various platforms. The only one that is a little bit tricky, and took me a few web searches to figure out how to stream live, because with OBS, with Open Broadcast Software, OBS does not support Instagram Live innately. You need another program, and there's another awesome free program. It's very lightweight, very simple to use, and it's called Yellow Duck. So just search Yellow Duck TV. And you can download for Windows or Mac, and that free little lightweight program will, you just put in what is your Instagram account and your password. And as long as you have OBS open and the stream key information, the two will connect, and whatever you are screen sharing and broadcasting out through OBS will connect to your Instagram Live account. And totally a big fan of this little lightweight program, and that's free is awesome. Okay, there are other programs like Wirecast and it's Slobs, it's Streamlabs, that's what it is. It's Streamlabs OBS, or Slobs. I don't like that acronym, probably Streamlabs doesn't like either. I knew it would come to me eventually with some help. So Streamlabs is the slightly more robust version of OBS. Built on the open source software, and there's a premium version of it and there's a free version of it. Wirecast is the next level. So if you're finding that you need a really good computer if you're going to have more than one or two video devices streaming simultaneously, or if you want to stream to more than two or one or two locations and record, you're going to need a very good computer. And so Wirecast is with a very good hard drive and a very good display board. Wirecast supports, and I think OBS does too, supports external streaming hardware, but Wirecast was really built to support that external, to get it off the main computer so that all the heavy lifting is for the streaming and the processing. This is what TV does, is done through separate hardware, not through the main computer, because things will slow down and your quality will be, and you'll get breakage and so on in terms of the streaming. So if you've got a good computer, you will be able to do one, or a reasonably good computer like a MacBook Pro, or probably anything less than just like some of the Air maybe won't be able to do. Yeah, Air is probably going to have some trouble. But MacBook Pro will have no trouble with one, possibly two, recording and live streaming to one platform. Shouldn't have any trouble, but more than that, you might experience some issues. So you'll want probably a desktop with some really good hardware in it if you're going to have more than a couple cameras, or you're streaming and or recording to a couple of different platforms at once. Okay. All right, so that's 15 minutes with streaming. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight. There's so much fun reading and orientation videos out there about like how do you create a little, you've seen on YouTube, there's all these YouTubers that have a daily like computer support or whatever, and they pop up in the right-hand corner with their headshot and their logo, and they have animation effects on it, and then it disappears, and they have other pop-ups, and all of that you can do with OBS. You're just going to have to learn how to do it. It's not terribly difficult, but you're just going to have to spend some time playing, and I find it quite fun learning how to play. All right, before we go into the next section, I just wanted some housekeeping items that is in my mind that I did not mention about WordPress before we disappear for today at 4 o'clock. I want to mention so you are running mamp on your local computer. Turn off the services when you're not using it. Okay, do not keep the server running unless you need it. It's going to take up a fair amount of bandwidth on your computer, and it does open you up. If someone ever did get access to your private network, it does open you up to some security issues. So only have those services active when you need them, and then don't just close the application. Turn the services off, and then close the application, because the services may stay on if you just close the application. Okay. Office 365. I'm glad there's still a few of you anyway that are staying with us for this section. So Office 365, if you have an account, the best login address that I know is portal.office.com. It's the shortest one. So I will put that into chat, portal.office.com. There is a longer one, which is login.microsoftonline.com, but I just find Portal is easier to type in. And login is the first word that is used for MailChimp. It's login.mailchimp.com. So I just don't want to be competing with I want something that's separate. So I don't have a lot of P websites that I go to. So portal.office.com, and you're going to have to pick your Microsoft account and log in. So once you've logged in, my display that I'm sharing here is the administration account. So for those that I've given a guest account to, it's going to look different because you won't have the same interface options. I'm not going to go through all of the aspects today of using Office 365. You're just like I had to learn. You're all going to have to learn how to use it. In terms of every single program. What I want to talk about today is what are some of the first things to look at if you are just starting out with using Office 365 for multiple users. Where should you spend your energy in learning first to engage and share files, information, emails with those users? Okay, so that's my approach, and I'm going to take about 15 or 20 minutes, maximum 20 minutes, I hope, to go through all of that. And I want to leave 10 to 15 minutes for the remaining participants here to ask me anything about digital technology. And I'll hopefully be able to answer. And if I can't answer today, I'll find a way to answer through another means, okay, a little bit later in the year. So open FAQ at the end. So the first thing when you're an administrator, the first thing you're going to want to go to is, with your Office 365 account, is to go to admin. And there are two primary things to think about. There are users and groups. Under groups is an idea. It's a way of organizing all of your people and all of your files under a name. So in ArtsPond, we have, so just to give you an example of how we decided to think about groups for ArtsPond, we have a number of different programs, and some of them are only internal. So like only I, for example, are working on them, and others have large teams of collaborators and some of them are staff and other of them are actually external to our organization. So you can I would think about groups as when you have files that you want to have different permissions for sharing around. So for example, for us, I have a group called board. And I have codes for every program. So anything that's about ArtsPond internally, I start with APO. We have a program called I Lost My Gig Canada that many of you may have heard of. And so the code for I Lost My Gig Canada is just ILG. We have another program called Ground Story, and its code is GRO. And so we have a code named 3 digits for all of our programs. And we create groups starting with those codes. So any group that's just about ArtsPond general administration starts with APO. And so I have files that only I need to see, and only I want to see. As president CEO, I am in charge of all the financials. But sometimes I need select members of the finance committee to have access to those files, and our auditor to have those files. So I decided to create a group called APO Finance. And it's its own space in in Office 365. Because I felt there was a need to share those files differently from, say, our grant applications or our marketing. So it depends how you want to set up groups. If you have a lot of collaborators and designers, you may want to create a design group. And all of your design files are there in that group. What you can do with a group is create a specific file repository. You can create a group email address and that allows you to email everyone in that group with a single email using SharePoint and Outlook. So SharePoint is the group files, and Outlook, it creates a group email address based on the name of the group. It allows you, using Planner, to create a critical path timeline around that specific group. So I don't necessarily, so I have an Arts APO board, I have an APO design, I have an APO finance, and I have an APO admin internal group in our SharePoint using groups here. So you just click on groups, active groups, and add a group. And so there's APO admin, APO board, APO design. I have an APO exec also. So that's like contracts or HR. It's basically HR management for our staff. So if we have conflicts of interest or problems with staff and we're trying to mitigate issues, we haven't had those, but we're ready for that. We don't want all staff to see it. I only want like the leadership team to see that. So we have an APO exec group. APO finance, we have a lot of translations that need to be done. So we have an APO trans group as well. Then we've got groups around our major programs, and they each have these 3-digit codes. So Artsy, Digital ASO admin, and Digital ASO advisory. So we have an advisory group that is supporting the design and evaluation. They don't need to see the day-to-day. We have a separate group for them and separate file sharing just for them. So it's deciding how many groups you want to have is based on your organizational needs, okay? And so these are all the internal email addresses that work for each of these groups. You can make these email addresses work as an external email address. So if someone is not a member of this group, they can email using that email address, and it'll get disseminated to all the members of the group. All of these emails are internal facing emails only, and so only members of the group can use them. They're not public facing emails, but that is an option. You can also, when you create a group, you can have it be a Microsoft Office 365 group, or it can just be a distribution group, an e-list. So it's a bunch of people that a single email address. It's a distribution list. It used to be when, what do you call them now? I'm brain farting on them, but when like 10, 20 years ago. Victoria, maybe you can help me, like all these e-lists, like servers, right? And there's like a group where there's a single email and I'm a part of them. Some of them, like there's 2,000 people a part of them and it's through a separate server and you email it to them and it gets distributed to everyone, like it's a group. A distribution list is pretty similar. It doesn't have the same file sharing repository and all the functions that, pardon me?
Like a Google group, I know Google used to have this group.
Not Google. It's like a mailing list basically. It doesn't have file sharing like Google. So it's not a Google list. It doesn't matter. I'm just tired and I can't remember what I'm wanting to say. Just basically, it's an e-list using a single email address, and whoever is, you can add members to that group. It's not file sharing, it's just email sharing. So it's a little bit different than a group, which allows you to have all this file sharing and so many things beyond just emailing each other. Okay, so there's a Office 365. You can share calendars, you can share files, you can have Planner, you can have, using Stream, you can create a space with video sharing. There's so many things you can do, or just distribution lists. So that's the one thing I want you to know about that. So no. And then once you've created your, cancel. Yes. So once you've created your various groups, you can click on them here and add new members just by clicking on members. View and manage owners and view and manage members. And you can click and see, I'm not going to open up all these things because I don't want everybody's information available there, but it's all manageable, and by clicking on the three dots here, you can edit the description and the email address and other stuff for the actual group itself. So the biggest function that I use on a daily basis for groups is SharePoint. And I want you to understand the difference in the Office 365 environment. The most confusing thing is to understand the difference between SharePoint and OneDrive. So there's OneDrive here and there's SharePoint. SharePoint is actually a very old technology. It's been around for as long as there's, I don't know, like 20 plus years, like even before the internet, I think in some ways, really long time. And OneDrive, and it was built for businesses to share through network drives. Yeah, it's well before the internet, through network drives. To share files, and it's graduated into the internet over time, and it's prioritized businesses. But now, but in the last 5 years, Microsoft spent a lot of energy bringing SharePoint into the Office 365 environment. OneDrive used to be the client for file sharing in Office 365, and it was geared towards, there was OneDrive Personal and OneDrive for Business. But as they've updated the technology, there is now OneDrive and SharePoint available to you. OneDrive is still used as the syncing technology. So if you have files located in SharePoint, use OneDrive, a OneDrive client, to download and upload those files to your local computer. But in Office 365, OneDrive is also its own file sharing space. And in this context of a not-for-profit organization, OneDrive is for personal user space. So you can have 1 terabyte of storage per user under the not-for-profit edition, the free not-for-profit edition for Office 365, unlimited number of users, or I think it's 500 actually, there is a limit, 500 users of 1 terabyte of personal storage each. And that is in OneDrive, and you can share it works just like Dropbox or Google Drive, any of them. I don't need to show it to you, be very, very familiar. You can share files with other users in your Office 365 space using OneDrive. What SharePoint does, however, instead of OneDrive, is just whoever is a part of that group automatically gets updated and shared the most recent version, and you can collaborate just like in real time, just like Office, like Google. You can collaborate real time in Word, PowerPoint, and Excel through SharePoint. OneDrive, it does it too, but it's much slower and not as hefty. Okay, so through SharePoint, I encourage you to use SharePoint. It just syncs up much better, both for the live editing, live commenting, live chatting in the same document, and syncing to your computer nicely. There's so much more around SharePoint beyond just syncing files. SharePoint has like it's an internet, basically. So you can create a landing page. So we'll just look at APO admin here. SharePoint, you can create a landing page and customize what shows up on this landing page. You can have team conversations. Team is the new Skype, and Skype for Business. Those are still available for individuals, but I think eventually they'll be depreciated and abandoned and replaced with Teams. So Teams is the video conferencing and chatting and file sharing program. Documents is basically sharing documents powered by OneDrive and SharePoint. OneNote is a notebook, all synced up through SharePoint. And Pages is the creating subsequent pages here to add to your intranet for this project. We went through this a little bit on Outlook. We went through it a little bit on the first day, the first series of training. But for those that missed it, when you create a group, all of those groups are automatically, and I shouldn't show some of these, but so you're going to have to, Victoria, white out these emails for me, please, on the video sharing. But down here, we see the APO admin group. And so there is all the emails. And so the group access is available through Outlook. You can send emails to that group, and it's just apoadmin@arspon.com. You can see the group calendar. You can go to group files. You can see the group calendar and the group notebook and planner and your site. That's the SharePoint. For those that have never seen it, Planner is very much like Trello in terms of, and you're going to probably have to white this one out also. It's a hub for drag and drop. Actually, I don't mind anyone seeing this. There's nothing here. But the emails you'll have to white out. It's a drag and drop, adding tasks for completion and tracking tasks and so on, and sharing those across your group. And then, so there's just so much that I recommend you create groups and around group files and so much more through the Office 365 environment. And that's my 20 minutes on Office 365. I hope that was helpful in terms of some thinking about how to organize and set things up. Creating users and changing permissions, all of that is really easy to do once you play around with the interface and try things out.